Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest is Jamal Green. For years, he has focused on helping people create wealth through home ownership. He recognizes that with more ownership comes a change of mindset that benefits communities and bridges the racial wealth gap in America. He has started a movement for communities to buy back the block and rebuild their communities one home at a time. He is a real estate broker and serial investor of companies in almost every industry. He believes his mission is to empower others, connect them with capital, or invest in them. Generational Green, his company was created to do all of the above. Jamal, welcome onto the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be on.
And we are going to dive so much more into you and your background. And I know I just mentioned a little bit about you and what you've been able to create and what you've done for the housing industry and for communities and clients across the country. But I would like to start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got started in real estate, and what's led you to where you are today.
Where is the start? I would say my mom probably was a little inspirational in which, we come from very humble beginnings in Chicago, and she wanted to be the one in the family to, purchase her own home and then purchase another property, right? And so she bought us a beautiful home right in the middle of the hood, as we call it, right? Where it was, very high crime rate, a lot of drugs, just a lot going on, but it was a beautiful home in the neighborhood. But this is what she could afford, right? Based on her approval. And that's where I started to, I really started to see real estate firsthand when she bought her second property. Her second property, she bought a 2-flat for cheap. This was like 5 blocks away, right? So still in the hood. And so that she can have some investment income, so she can rent both units out. And so she rented both units out to Section 8 tenants. And, what I saw through tenant after tenant is I saw the real experience about being a landlord, right? And I was the manager of the properties as her only boy. And she didn't have a bunch of money to keep putting into the property. So of course, what's she gonna do? Get in there and help him paint. Get in there and help him patch the walls. And so I always had to get in after we put out. We would evict the tenant and they didn't ransack the whole apartment. And I had to get in there and try to put it back together so she can get some rental income. Because she needs it. So these are my early thoughts of real estate. Is my mom, a single mother who's trying to do her best for 3 children and own and not rent. And so as I got older, I saw how important home ownership was especially after, I'm the youngest candidate to ever run for mayor of Chicago. And, one of my big things was talking about how to rebuild communities. And what I understood that communities with the best statistics when it comes to the rate of violence, when it comes to health rates and health disparities, when it comes to, I went through all the different statistics. And what I found was the neighborhoods with the most homeowners had the best survival rates, the best education systems, the best rates when it comes to health, violence, everything. So I started to see how community is formed when people purchase and own their properties because they take ownership in their block. And I did it myself, right, at 25. And when I bought my first home, I was like, now I'm neighborhood watch, right? Like I'm looking like, whoa, hold on, pick up your trash. Oh, hey, pick up your dog poop, stuff that wasn't going on in the hood growing up, right? Like it just, no one cared, right? And so as a homeowner, I understood how important it was to create more homeowners who cared about their blocks because that shifts the mindset, that increases the value of the neighborhood, increases taxes to flow into the schools, to increase the schools, and just see the ripple effect of creating more homeowners and seeing. And that was my main focus of why I focused on building new homeowners. And then I fought Chase Bank. Clue with this, I fought Chase Bank in 2020, and I made them give back $1 billion to the south and west side of Chicago because they were only lending 1.9% of the time. And so that was another big piece that happened that really pushed me to say, hey, we got to make sure people are prepared as well, and make sure that we own our communities.
No, and I love that. And thank you for bringing up about Chase Bank and the work that you did against them, which I want to get into. That was on the list of my show notes. I have to hear this story and have to hear, what you were able to accomplish by this. But thank you for sharing a little bit more, about your background. And it looks like your mom, really was that one who instilled that importance into you. And it's been really great to see that you continue on what she's taught you and have built up such a great business from this and in helping, those first time home buyers. It sounds like you work with a lot of them. What do you say when you deal with first time home buyers? I know I hear so much of this from our members and even just from my circle of friends and groups, and like, buying a home's never going to happen. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. We hear all these barriers. What is your way to kind of talk your first time home buyers through some of that apprehension that they may have, especially with the market that we're experiencing today?
Well, number one of the biggest things that we do is we always talk about mindset first, right? Because that's the biggest barrier in our communities is a lot of us have the wrong mindset about ownership, or we're not educated on ownership. We create these fears of ownership because of those things. And so that's our first thing that we do is we really discuss mindset and the importance of ownership and what it means. And, there are a few things that we talk about all the time. One is that, your first property is not going to be a dream home. You're not getting a mansion and a pool inside your house. It's not happening. And for people to humble themselves in their approval. But we talk to them about how that first property can parlay you into the second property, right? And how, whether it is growing equity, whether it is house hacking, and, you'll have extra income to utilize when you're getting approval for your second property, like really, really teaching them this is how, start at this humble beginning where you are, and this is how you can get to where you want to be. And so we always, one of the big thing I always say is humble yourself in your approval. And that's one thing that my clients always hear. And then we just want people to really just understand that they can do it, right? And they see so many, that's what make people come to us so much, because they see so many success stories. And it's like, this is right here at your fingertips. This ain't a year process. You could do this right now. And that's another thing, is just motivating them to show them that they can do it, because that's another barrier, is that people don't believe that this can happen for them, and it's possible for them. When it's like renting is possible for you, right? So it's like, I need you to understand, like, they've created this whole like thing about ownership, like this is this big thing and this big step, and it's just like,
I'm not ready. I can't mortgage rates are
yes. It's crazy. Like, you got to understand that you can do it. And so what do I tell them is humble yourself in your approval. And we talk and teach them about all of the different things around real estate so that they're educated. And, we move forward.
I think that is so key. What you said is just like letting your clients and people that you work with know that, hey, this can happen. This myth out there, it's not some pie in the sky dream or some far-fetched thing. You're not going to buy $1 million home, right away. And I think, letting people know that might be the path for them, but it's still achievable. You don't have to wait. And when you have someone like an expert and a realtor that you work with, they can get you there. And with the help of them, a lot of this is going to be super streamlined, and it's going to be achievable to do. I think that's key in making sure people know. Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. I want to hear a little bit about founding Generational Green. Tell us about that, the work you guys do there. I know you mentioned a little bit about the education and some of the things that you all do there, but tell us about founding that, what you all do, and what made you want to do that.
Yeah. So Generational Green is a one-stop shop for folks to own property. And the whole goal here is, I think what happens is when people want to purchase, They think they need all these different people and things and yada yada, that we make it so easy for them. You can come right into Generational Green and we have everything for you, right? We got a credit repair program that's called Credit to Close. We have a tax clinic led by RS professionals. We have grants with different lenders. We already know where all of the grants are, that fits in your situation, depending on, what your situation is. We know who to place you with. We have inspectors, we have lawyers. It's a one-stop shop. So you really don't have to look anywhere else. And so you come into the family and we provide you with the best service to get you where you need to be and all of the resources that you need. And that's what Generational Green is about, because a lot of times, and my mom, says this, a lot of other owners say this, like, man, I wish I had a Generational Green, right? To be able to come into a group that will be able to take your hand and walk you from beginning to end. And all you got to do is what you're supposed to do, and everybody else going to do their part. Is a great feeling. We do expos once a quarter. We do trolley tours where we take them to houses on the market and teach them about equity and different things of that sort in the neighborhoods. We do Wealthy Wednesdays every Wednesday evening. We had one yesterday. Hundreds get on every week to, just come in and listen to a different topic that we're going to talk about, and we educate them and we school them on real estate. That's what I was going to say earlier, is that one of the things we do when we start Wealthy Wednesdays is I make all of my clients tell me how much money they're spending in rent every year. And so, it's like a little contest every week on who's spending the most money. And I want them to really see, because as we're talking to them about this, they get to see the actual number. Some of them are spending 25,000 or more in rent every year, right? And when we're educating them on this, they're like, man, I'm not getting nothing back from this, right? And it teaches them the importance of why they can own, right? Because you're paying your landlord and your landlord is paying the mortgage and they're gaining equity. So, you get nothing when you leave, but they get equity, right? And so just really teaching them that. So yeah, that's Generational Green. It's the one-stop shop for people that want to create Generational Green.
I love that. I think that's amazing. Like you said, I want one here.
We got to build one there. Yes.
I know. Come to Columbus.
Yes, let's do it. We're trying to expand to 50 states. We actually are, we say that we're in 50 states because if we do have clients in certain states, we'll reach out to realtors and folks in those states and partner with them, with our clients. But yeah, we definitely want to expand and be all over the country, because this movement can really bridge the racial wealth gap and increase home ownership throughout the country. And it's something that we want to do. So that's Ohio needs to definitely be on the list. Cleveland is close to my heart. Many friends and my great grandfathers from there. And so we got to make that happen.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations.
Columbus too.
Absolutely, yes. I think so too. I think there's a huge, need out there for this kind of stuff, and just educating and, like you said, holding someone's hand through this process, making sure they have everything that they need to achieve this. Bringing awareness to, yes, the cost of renting. And there was something I saw on social media the other day, and this girl was like bragging about, I'll never own my home because, my washer or dryer went out and the maintenance came and replaced it in 24 hours or something. And I'm like, but you're paying for that in your rent price. Like, you may not think you're paying for that, but it's in your rent price.
And I tell them when I make them tell me how much they're spending in rent every year, I say, listen, pay me that and I'll do all of the maintenance for you, right? Let's subtract how much you think these things actually cost. and how much profit is there. Because that's what people don't understand, because they think, oh well, I'm getting convenience. And no, you something happens here and there, right? And for 12 months you don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of things that you've asked for. You might have asked for $500 worth of something, or $1,000 at most for the year, of different little maintenance things that you've asked for. But how much are you actually spending, right? And you get nothing from it.
Yeah, no, so true. I think I just saw that reminded me of that, just the misconceptions that I think exist out there around home ownership. What have you seen? What are some big misconceptions that you see in educating people that come up a lot, or that you are like, having to tell people differently than what they might be believing? What are some of those common things that you're seeing when you work with people?
Well, I think credit. There's always credit issues. Another thing that we push big is the Section 8 vouchers, and showing people how they can use their Section 8 voucher to own instead of rent, because a lot of people don't know that. And I'll say a lot. I'll say 90% of people on vouchers don't know that they can turn their vouchers into ownership instead of renting, and they will help you pay your mortgage. Just like they're helping you pay your rent. And we have in Chicago another program where you could just give up your voucher for $20,000, $20,000 grant, if you can sustain for yourself. So that's another thing that people don't know. We have closed, just in the last couple of weeks. We've closed two that have given up their voucher for $20,000. I got another one closing next week that's giving up her voucher for $20,000. And the one next week and the one that just closed, they did 2 units, right? So one of them last week that closed, she got a 2 unit where it's a tenant already there that's paying the majority of her mortgage already. So, she turned in her voucher, got 20,000 plus something else. She got probably about $26,000 of free money. So she was able to, probably was able to buy down her rate a little bit. She got a low rate, decent mortgage, and her tenant is paying most of her mortgage. And then, so she gets to move into that 1 unit and probably spend a couple $100 a month, because the tenant is paying the majority of their mortgage. And so she was able to utilize that voucher to really give her some real financial security, and stability going forward. You know what I'm saying? And so we just got to teach people how they can utilize what they have and make it work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's something to take notes of this, especially to our realtors listening out there. I mean, look that up. As Jamal mentioned, that could be an option. I think, in today's day and age of being a realtor, we have to be so creative in helping clients get into homes. And the more options we can present to them, I just had someone on the podcast who was talking about how to take advantage of all cash offers, and how to work out with that with your bank, and the advantages of that, and just coming to our clients with, a multitude of different ways that they can, say, hey, this is how we can make it happen. I mean, that's another just great example of being creative, coming up with different and unique solutions to help your clients get there, I think is.
For sure.
Okay, I want to hear about this movement against JP Morgan Chase. You mentioned in the beginning what that experience was like. Walk us through that. Start at the beginning and tell us your experience and what happened with that.
JP Morgan Chase, I'm still banned from every Chase in America. I don't really care. So JP Morgan Chase, what numbers have released in Chicago, these journalists had went and got the numbers of how banks lend. There's an article you can look up, how banks lend in Chicago, that came out in 2020 from the City Bureau and WBEZ. And one of the reporters is a friend of mine's, Linda Lutton, who did some amazing investigative work to pull the data to show how the banks where their loans are going throughout the city. And Chase, who owns the biggest market share in our state, and they have the property tax contract. They have, Chase, as we know, is the biggest bank in the world. And so they kind of control banking throughout the country. I would say, I know they control it here in Illinois, so I'm sure they control it throughout. And what bothered me is that with them having the most market share, the most branches, and all of the above, they gave the least amount of money to the urban communities. And so you have a very prestigious community that got, millions and millions of dollars in loans over 6 months. I mean, I'm sorry, over a 6-year period. And then you'll look at middle class Black neighborhood, and they've only given 3 loans in 6 years. or you will look in a middle class Latino neighborhood, and you will see the disparities of wow, like they literally. You mean to tell me there weren't 5 homeowners in 6 years that they gave loans to in these neighborhoods? But you look in our most prestigious neighborhoods, the upper middle class, and they gave millions and millions of loans. Like that wasn't a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? This was intentional.
Yeah.
And we were able to find that those who were going into the branches in those communities, they were intentionally not, they had different requirements and they were intentionally not lending in those neighborhoods. And so then people would say, okay, well maybe it's because of the default rates. And then they put out a report to show that default rates were exactly the same in our neighborhoods and in the upper middle class neighborhoods, right? And so they were able to show like the default rates aren't much different at all. And so it was able to dispel those. So what I did was I started a movement to fight against JP Morgan Chase. And what we did, I'm more Malcolm than Martin, just so you know. So what we did was we went inside over 35 branches for months, and we shut them down, and we put people out, and we made them shut down branches every day. And I was able to get their attention, of course, right? Because it caused a big stir and millions of people were watching. I wasn't going to sit outside and just pass in protest and pass out no papers. I need them to feel it and really interrupt their environment so that they can really understand how important this is to us, because these are people who deposit. You got to understand, a majority of neighborhoods deposit their money in Chase. And the fact that they can't even come and get an auto loan, a mortgage, they can't get nothing from Chase is an issue, right? Because these are the people who deposit all of their checks into this institution and their credit. And then people would say, oh, maybe I don't have good credit. No, there's a lot of people in these neighborhoods. Majority of these people in these neighborhoods have decent credit and they've been working their jobs. Think about our parents' generation, who they love to have jobs for 20, 30 years, right? We're a little bit different, right? But our parents' generation, most of these people have been at post office or the city or whatever, and they've been there for 20, 30 years. So you have no excuse to not give them a loan. Why do they have to go everywhere else to get a loan but you? Because you choosing not to invest in their neighborhoods. And so we were able to bring them to their knees, and they gave $1 billion back to Chicago, and they announced 30 billion worldwide. And they acknowledged me and my work. They didn't lift the ban though. So I don't know, if I walk into a Chase, if I'll be arrested. But they did had they did have a letter at every branch that said if I walked in, they have me arrested, because they thought that was going to get me to stop, and it didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do not bank at Chase is what I'm hearing.
No, they shut down. I had an investment account, but they shut it down and
Wow.
everything. I mean, Chase is. I don't want to bank with Chase anyway. Chase, I don't like funding my own oppression, as I like to say it, right? Like, and this is how I am with every institution, because I have a bank account with almost every bank, every major bank you could think of. I have an account or a business account. And the purpose is because I want to see if my relationship with you is going to be reciprocal. And if I can deposit lots of money into your bank and build a relationship with you, I should be able to lean on that banking relationship for a credit line or for a loan if I need it, or for a mortgage or for a commercial mortgage. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is how banking is supposed to be. And people think banking is just means that we're supposed to deposit our money. No, they are taking our money, investing it. They're charging you fees every single month, making money off of you. You might as well leave your money in the mattress. If you're going to put your money in an institution, you need a reciprocal relationship with them. At least give you a dang secure card. Most of these banks won't even give you a secure credit card if you ain't got no credit. Like we need that. And that's what I preached on that movement.
Yeah, well, congrats to you for bringing awareness to that, for the work that you did, getting that money back reinvested into the community. Really, really great job with that. And I mean, that's the basis of redlining, right? I mean, if you look at the history of segregation in America, so much of it was done from these lenders and was done from these banks. And, the fact that now it's 2025, or when you had this issue with Chase, however many years ago that was, that this is still a thing. I mean, I think is really eye-opening and deserves to be talked about, just when we think about how we can all make this more accessible to everybody. So hats off to you.
Thank you. And we need our legislators to do more on a federal level to go after these banks because they've loosened the CRA bills, and so many loopholes for the banks because they'll say, oh, well, they got a good rating, like they can throw money at a few urban organizations and say, oh, well, we gave money to, rather than actually making sure that these banks are actually loaning and giving the money to the neighborhoods. And so it's too many loopholes there that allow the banks to redline us while throwing money at some organizations to say, "Oh, look at what we did. We're doing well," and we got to stop that.
Yeah, there's more work to be done for sure. That
Hmm.
it's not fixed. It's far from it. There's absolutely more to do. But with people like you, I think we can be on the right track. To help remedy some of this and make positive change. So I want to thank you, Jamal, so much for coming on, for sharing your amazing work and the stories that you do. And hats off to you for being such a champion for our homeowners and communities around America.
Well, I appreciate you, and we got to get a generational green to Columbus. So let's start those conversations, and let's make homeowners all across the country and get everybody to start creating that generational green.
Yeah, absolutely. And to all of our listeners, I appreciate you guys for listening. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.